good day. And just jumping in, I'm going to give you a little bit more background on a couple of my success stories to kind of give you some context to who I am. The most fun that I've ever had in marketing automation was taking a client who was a startup from $0 to 4 million in sales and a buyout 4 years later. I know things move a lot more quickly now, but that was a really fun one, and it was a very tough industry. But my success from this week that I wanted to share was we took one of our clients who had never done any automations at all to, I think, 3 different automations using the list that they had built and sweated over for many years to nurture and have relationships with and had done business with. But just the mere fact of adding automation gave them a $16,000 sale within the first 5 minutes of hitting the send button. So everything that we're going to talk about on my presentation can be life-changing to your business. And the more automations you have in place, the more life-changing experience you can have with all of this. So it's a lot of upfront work, but it's well worth it. And this is my motto. And this is what we strive for when we work with anyone who's interested in marketing automation is 100% of your contacts, so prospects and customers, on a drip campaign 100% of the time. And that's what makes everything start to click and feel like, well, what we say here, Christmas every day. You're not doing anything, but things are happening. And you do the heavy lifting up front, but then you take the benefit of that kind of forever, as long as the automations are running. And what makes this possible to be able to achieve this goal is segmentation. If your list is segmented right, then you're constantly finding the right messages, as Thomas said, the right message at the right time to send to each component of your list based on where they are in their buyer's journey. So it's really getting out of your own headspace of, I need to tell them this, I need to tell them this, my product is this, my service is this, and really listening to who your clients are, what they're telling you about what their problems are, and building automations around how you can help solve those problems for them at a very micro level if possible. Okay, these are just a few of the segments that you can come up with. There are just unlimited numbers of segments that you can come up with. But what you're trying to do is, number one, identify your ideal customer profile. What do they look like? So in the green, you can see we've got what I call firmographic information, like what is their title at their company? How big is the company? What industry are they in? If you're in software, for example, you may have a niche that you're following, and most of your ideal customers are coming from that niche. But if you're like a lot of other businesses, there are tons of different industries who are coming in. And so their lingo might be different in their world that they live in. So you don't want all your messages to sound the same. You also want to talk to customers down at the bottom. Leads versus customers. If somebody has not done business with you before, you don't want to send the same message to a customer that you would to a newbie, and it's kind of insulting. So you want to make sure your messaging is segmented, at least at that bare minimum, by whether they're a customer or a prospect. You want to consider urgency with your segmentation, meaning if somebody just subscribed, or they just did a trial, or they just downloaded something, the next 3 days are critical importance, because what they're probably doing on their end is going online and researching a lot of different websites and finding lots of different assets to download. And you're just one of many, and there's no positioning yet. There's no branding. They're not going to remember who you were 5 minutes later. And you want to do something to stand out in the inbox. It's going to be different than the other people who are also giving them information. So I think one of the worst travesties that we see is when you do the good job of getting the opt-in and then you go radio silent and nothing happens after that. And that is, that's a shame for you. So you want to at least have automations in place so that you can follow up and again, introduce yourself, give them kind of a walking tour through who you are, why you matter, how you're going to solve their problem, and do it in a timely way. So Urgency is a very critical segmentation component. What happens when you don't handle urgency, if you look to my bubble on the left, is people go inactive. And that happens a lot of times with veteran businesses that have been around doing marketing for a long time, and you just forget about people on your list, especially if they're customers. That happens more when someone is a customer than when they're a prospect. When they're a prospect, we're like gung-ho, get the sale. What do we need to do to move that sale along? But after we get them, we get complacent and we forget about them. And then they kind of just go away. And it's going to be up to them if they come back to our world or not. But we can increase, I think the statistic is something like 10 or 15% of our sales just by paying attention to people on our list who have gone inactive. So the ones that have bought in the past, but maybe it's been a year, maybe it's been 2 years. I work with some niches where it takes 5 years for another sale to happen. Well, there's a lot of things that can happen between 1 and 5 years to make someone forget that they did business with you. So you want to have a segment in place where you're constantly looking at your list. You're seeing who those people are at risk of going inactive, or they have gone inactive, and we're giving messages specifically for them to keep them live and in our world. And then lead scoring, very important component of segmentation, helping you. So there's like the things that you know about prospects and customers, like the green segments that I've got showing here. There are things that you can know about them, but that doesn't get in their head. And to really be effective, you want to be able to get into the prospect's head, figure out what is the problem that they have. And in the bottom right, you can see I'm talking about problem or solution aware. There's a ascension in sales. So a lot of us know, I forgot what it's called now. one of the frameworks of doing selling, and you start with someone who doesn't know very much and they move up. Another framework for selling is problem aware, problem unaware, solution aware, solution unaware. So we want to really work with people who know that they have a problem, but they're not sure what the solution is, or they've done their homework. They're at the bottom of the sales funnel. And not only do they know what their problem is, you're on the short list. Those are the people that really we need to have communication with our segmentation. And it's hard to know who those people are because it's in their head. They're not demonstrating that except for their online behavior. So for their online behavior, are they visiting certain web pages? Are they filling out forms? So MailModa is a big proponent of lots of forms on your website. We want people to go to lots of different places, fill out forms, get stuff, moving them along in the sales process so that we can get the conversion. And it helps educate them and make them be a more valuable client in the long run because they're going to come pre-educated. So the lead score, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that on the next page. And that's another very important one. And then, of course, if they've bought before, that's information that you're going to have, hopefully segmented in your database, which products or services. But it's also an opportunity for you to be able to set up cross-selling segments and cross-selling automations that can help, if you kind of like what Amazon does. People who bought this like this. So that's the same idea with cross-selling on your own database. And even it could just be more consulting services. If you don't have another product or service to sell, there's other ways that you can upsell people who are already in your world. If they're giving you money, they love you, let's find more ways to get more money out of them. All right, so this is my very simple automation workflow. And there's so many ways that you can complicate this, but what I recommend is starting off very slowly and just getting the basics in place so that you know you've covered all your bases. Nobody's slipping through the cracks. You're not forgetting about anybody. You're not relying on salespeople only to follow up with leads. Nothing wrong with that. That's what you're paying them for. But people get busy, and good salespeople are looking for low-hanging fruit. And so, yes, it's more fun to, do a sales call with a new one. But if the client hasn't bought in 30, 60, 90 days, it gets harder and harder to make that next call to close them. So the automations that you put into place can take the place of, well, I shouldn't say take the place of, but enhance the person-to-person selling that a salesperson may do. Or if you're a completely online business, those gaps of where you've done all the heavy lifting of giving them the information that they requested, you're starting to educate them, the sales still hasn't come in, and how much is too much emailing. It's going to kind of drop off over time, but we don't want it to completely drop off. So the cadence of these messages is very important. And one of the big questions that I always get asked a lot is, how do I know what to say? How do I know, I don't know what I should do when I hit this part of the customer's buying journey. So this mapping it out, this process of mapping out your automation workflow is very important. You can do it on a cocktail napkin. And what you're looking for are segments that are going to help you move the needle towards conversion. There are a lot of nice to haves. What you want to do is your have to haves first. So this is the stripped down have to have model for every business that is trying to get sales online. So across the top, you can see we've got different ways that they could come into your world. So they could download something, they could sign up for your newsletter, they could attend a webinar like you're on today. If you're in software, they could request a free trial or anything that would cause them to fill out a form and opt into your list and receive something in exchange to help educate them and give them the answer to the question that they're looking for. Now, on the right side, we've got schedule a call. That would be the holy grail right there. Sadly, very few people are going to come into your website and immediately sign up for a call. If they do, it's because they're already bottom of the funnel. They're probably already solution aware, meaning they want you, or at least they want you and 3 other people. But that's very unusual. It's a very small percentage of the world of prospects out there. But when that happens, so that's why I've got it kind of divided off. Let me see if I can use my mouse a little bit. So this section here is divided off because if somebody comes in and they book a call or they book a demo with you, you don't really need any help. You kind of know what to do at that point. Now, that's not to say that we're not going to follow up with automation. We are, but you're going to immediately notify. So this is an automatic notification from the form to a salesperson to hand them off because they're hot. This is like the hottest lead. There just aren't very many of those. At the same time, we're going to put them on a solution aware drip. They are more well-educated than the rank and file prospect who's going to come in and do one of these things. These are the tire kickers. These are the serious, I'm ready to make a decision here. So we want to get them handled as soon as possible. We don't want to get them mixed in with these other people. And when you can see I've got points assigned, and you can set it up however you want. This is just what makes sense to me is low points for downloading something that doesn't really tell you very much about where they are right now. And attending a webinar that's taking more of that person's time. They've got to put it on their calendar. They've got to clear their calendar in some cases. And so if they register, they have good intent. That's pretty good. So they get a few more points for that. If they request a trial, it's almost the same thing. And if you don't have personal calls, then maybe this is the holy grail and you want to bump that up to 20 points. But if this is kind of the progression, 10 points seems reasonable compared to getting on a one-to-one call. So you can see the points go higher. Now, they could be doing more than one thing at a time. They could be doing all of these things, and that would make it an urgent hot lead. And we talked about urgency. So that's where the lead scoring comes in. And so I arbitrarily said, if they've accumulated 10 or more points, then they're a pretty hot lead. So let me tell you how I got down here. So we kind of carved off this section here. We know they're hot. How are we going to handle these people who are not yet ready to make a commitment or meet with you, or we don't even know if they're a true qualified prospect at this point? So we gave them some points to start out with, but their needs are possibly a little bit different depending on what they did. So if they download something, they obviously have a problem that they think you can solve. And so they're getting a little bit more information. They are problem aware. We want that. So we're going to write a sequence that's a problem-aware sequence. We're going to acknowledge, we don't have to start in kindergarten with the content that we're coming up with. We can start in high school and give them a little bit of more specific information. It could even be repeated information that they're going to see in the ebook, because they may not even get around to reading this. So you can just a lot of times repurpose that content, and that's all that you have to do. And there's urgency here. All of these sequences, there's urgency to get something out within the first 72 hours. The webinar registration, I said registration and not attendee, because some people are going to register and attend. Some people are going to register and then not attend. They're still a lead. We still want to follow up with them. And you may still want a salesperson to follow up if you've got a hot lead. But we at least want to acknowledge if they attended, give them kudos for taking their time to do that. If they didn't, here's what you missed. In either case, we're probably going to give a recording. So these are the interim steps in the first few days after they take their action, before we move them down here and say, okay, now based on that, what's their lead score? So in these sequences also, we're going to put more links of ways that we can send them back to the website to get more points. So the more things that they do, and once we know who they are, if they visit a web page, those are other ways that we can track points. So all of these things, if they're doing multiple things, their score is getting bigger and bigger, and that's going to usually happen within the first week to 10 days. Same here, if they request a free trial, then they're going to want quick start tips, because they may be solution unaware. They're looking at you, they're looking at other software, they're looking at other possible solutions to the problem that they have. So we want to really zoom in on the problem and know that they're looking at competitors along with us. So we're going to give them comparison charts. We're going to give them super tips that maybe they wouldn't learn until they'd been in the program for a while, to help them get up to speed faster and really see the difference in the value in what you're offering. So these three areas, we're going to see what our lead score is. Oops, sorry. We're going to see what our lead score is, and then we are going to do one of two things. If their score, so when we have a diamond shape like this, this is workflow stuff. This is a decision point. So we either have a yes point or a no point. We always want to predict what happens if my prospect does this, and what if he doesn't do what I thought he was going to do? What is my response to that? So in a lot of cases, you're going to have automation set up for both ways. And then when they hit that trigger, it's going to know what to do. So a lead score is very easy to get your, it's a very meaty segment. Behavioral kind of things are a little bit harder. Sometimes you have to guess, but a lead score is a solid handle that you can grip on. Same with a download from a form. Forms are, you can get your arms. Those are just really meaty ways of understanding where your client is in the buyer's journey. So we definitely want to keep them on a nurture campaign if their lead score is 10 plus. So eventually you can see, so if the lead score is 10 plus, yes, then now that's a qualified sales qualified lead that we're going to hand off to a sales rep. And so the sales rep is going to go do his magic, but then also we're still going to put them on the nurture drip. So you can see this comes around and still everybody ends up. So they started on all these drips up here, but down here, they're getting put on the nurture drip. When these are over, this starts. If their lead score is not 10 plus, they're not quite feeling it with you yet. So we want to absolutely keep them on a nurture drip. And we recommend that the nurture drip lasts as long as it takes for you to convert someone to a customer. And then when that ends, you just start it over again. Nobody ever remembers that they already read that message. And that is how we achieve 100% of your database on a drip campaign 100% of the time. So you can see all of these are closed loops. There's like nobody's left hanging. Everybody eventually funnels down to the nurture drip. Now, again, this is a very simplified map of how to set up your automations. But if you would do this, you're about 90% ahead of most people who do online marketing, and they're really good at getting the traffic to come in, or they're really good at paying for advertising to get people to download some kind of an asset, and then they forget about them if they don't buy in the first 30 days. And the secret sauce of anything in business is long-term continuity, continuous effort until you get that sale. And there are a lot of sales, the majority of the sales that are going to come in the first 90 days, 180 days, up to a year. We've been running in our company some of the same drip sequences for 10 years, to the point where I don't even remember anymore what a lot of the messaging says. And I'm still shocked that we get people who respond to a message that I wrote, 10 years ago, but it's still producing value for me all these years later. So that is the strength of getting these campaigns set up front, and really tweaking them, or figuring out, okay, I've got all my basics in place. What's the next step for me? What is the next way that I could add some oomph to my sales process that I don't have currently? And a lot of times what happens is the clients will tell you, they'll ask questions, and after you get asked a question, for the fourth time, it's like, oh, I really need a sequence about that. And that's where you can start finessing this kind of experience, really using your MailMoto software to the best of your ability to get the most amount of money out of it, to have it help you to optimize the whole process and bring in more sales. And so I always laugh when I get clients who say, I can't afford that software. And I think, how is that even possible? You don't know what you're doing then. You're not using it enough, because your software cost should be this infinitesimal amount of money compared to the opportunity that you have of building out these automation sequences and getting them to work very hard for you, converting new business without you having to really do anything. So I have set up for my MailMoto friends an Ask Me Anything meeting. If you'd like, it's not a sales pitch. I'm not going to pitch you anything, but if you have any questions at all about anything I've covered on this talk, I'm happy to have you come to my website, thedatabasedivas.com/MailMoto, and sign up. 15 minutes. Tell me what's on your mind. I'll see if I can help you figure it out, make suggestions on what automations you need to put into place next, tell you if you're doing the right ones. I believe all of your effort should go to building out the automations that are going to help you close sales fastest, and then the nice to haves come after that. So thank you very much, Thomas and crew, and Asma, for inviting me. And thanks.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Lloyd. That was definitely a power pack session. Right, I do have a couple of questions, maybe from mine. We'll take a few if there's any in the chat. But I've been talking to a lot of companies and founders who, especially in the young stages, right, where they're just starting off companies. From your experience, and you've been working across different types of industries, right? What's the best way for a small time or an early stage startup to kickstart their journey in email automation? Because I've seen
Mm.
polar opposites. Where some people focus, saying that okay, they know the value of this, right? On the other hand, they say, like you said, oh, it's too expensive. The investment is not worth it right now. There's a lot of bandwidth that goes into setting things up. So what's your suggestion around it?
I would definitely set up forms for collecting newsletter subscribers. I mean, your newsletter is kind of a boring call to
Yeah.
action, and then you kind of have to follow through on the other end and actually produce a newsletter. So something like that, if it weren't a newsletter, then maybe your signature white paper, your signature one pager. I mean, I think white papers are kind of dated. Nobody's reading anything. Nobody. It's like people have no attention span. So just do a one pager. Just do bullets. Just do stats, and let people download that. And just get some activity coming in on a form that you can put people onto a nurture campaign after they download that thing. If you just do that one thing, that's going to be so powerful in your business. And then after you see that that's working, because then in your nurture campaigns, you're going to drive them to a specific web page. Like in software, for example, if you drive them to terms and conditions, or a pricing page, or how do I get my money back if I don't like the software page? If you can see that they're going there, they're making that buying decision. So by having that link in your nurture campaign, that's giving you that behavioral evidence that you have a live prospect that you should be following up on. And that's such powerful insight. That's how I would start.
All right, perfect. And I mean, I love the point scoring system. I think that's a very good way of kind of explaining on how a marketer can look at it, right? And defining each, assigning an each point to a certain channel, and that would help you kind of convert your MQLs into SQLs, so the sales
Mhm.
teams can go ahead and crush those leads. So thank you for that. Let me just quickly check in if there are any questions from the audience. And I think there's one from Stephanie here. Yeah, I think you should see it on your screen. So her question is, if a prospect does not open an email within the nurture campaign, would they just go through it again, or would they receive all the emails within the nurture, or only the unopened ones? So how do you kind of distinguish genuine opens? You got this chatbot activity, you got Apple MPP opening up. So what's your thought around that?
That's a really great question. Okay, my thought around that is that open rates are not to be trusted anymore. There's too much privacy interruption that has happened, and that's not a good metric. But clicks are reliable. Clicks are a deliberate action taken by that recipient. So you're wanting to build content that is going to generate a click of some kind. So that's where I don't like your only call to action to be schedule a meeting with me, because most people won't do that. Or, download this demo. Most people won't do that. Come up with something else that is an easier ask so you can get the click, or even have them read something on your website. You just want the click. If you get the click, that's better than an open rate. And yes, then I would still recycle that nurture campaign when it's over. Now, I say on a nurture campaign, once every 3 weeks, that's 18 messages a year. So no one's going to remember message number 1 year later. So that's why I'm comfortable saying that. However, the nurture campaign, and I forgot what I was going to say about that, but that was with the open rates. It's gone. I'll
All
think of
right.
it. But that was
All
a
right.
great question. Go for the clicks.
Perfect, perfect. Hopefully that was helpful, Stephanie. And are there any more questions? I don't think so. Perfect. All right. So let's call this a wrap. Thank you so much, Roy, for your time. It was wonderful
Thanks,
hearing from
everybody.
you. And until next time. Yeah.